Hello, police? I think I just witnessed a murder. Is pretty much me leaving this week's episode of Classroom of the Elite because holy hell, man. I mean, I already know a good amount of the fandom's probably just gonna say Hirata was a bit of a coward or this or that, but the actual bullying angle makes sense for where they went with. I think he deserved to be punished and to have a reality check 100%, but I really like what they did with his character, and it definitely explains the motivation of why he was so bound and determined to just kind of lose it over a character who I don't think many people shed a tear that he's actually gone, minus a handful who were friends, right? But to see a man who is so good at manipulating people as if they're chess pieces on a board, which kind of goes hand in hand with how he says, like, if he's trying, no one will ever beat him at chess. And that's what this is. It's a game of life in the form of chess, and the way he just tears him down to say you are to blame, this and that. If you're gonna have this motivation that you think it's possible to save, as irrational as it is, that blame of not being able to is completely on you. But then the way he rebuilt him to make him a valuable asset once again. I think the most frightening characters aren't ones who kill people or eliminates them because it's easy and it makes their life easy. I think the most, crazy or frightening characters are those who recognize the value in a person and would rather keep them around and keep them in the way they need to in order to use them like a tool. And that's pretty much what Ayanokoji does. And watching him absolutely destroy Hirata in this episode and the way he comes back pretty much as we're used to expecting him, this special exam is gonna be crazy. That's all I'm saying. I, of course, have a full live reaction to this week's episode of Classroom of the Elite over on my Patreon. If you want to see my full uncut thoughts, they're over there if you're interested. Now, this was a perfect episode in my mind. When you skip the opening, you know things are about to get serious, and serious this episode was. I mean, Jesus, man. Just watching a situation where the class is more or less okay, but then there's that one sour grape who's just, it feels like one wrong move and someone's getting assaulted. And that's pretty much what happened with, I think her name was Me. I mean, it's not the worst thing that could have happened. I mean, we've all seen these anime where a character loses it and then he starts actually like backhanding. Luckily, it seems to be that he was shoving, which still isn't acceptable, but it's not as bad as it could have been. And the idea that, I don't know what it is, between Yamauchi's like exit when he decided to grab a chair and try to hit someone who's like 3 times his size, or in this episode where, well, I think his shoulder got dislocated. In my headcanon, his shoulder got dislocated and he had to run to the nurse's office to get it repaired or something. I just think it'd be funnier if we assumed that. But the idea of picking her up after this whole scumbag situation and carrying her like a princess, I mean, at that point, you just have to accept your fate that it is what it is and now you live in this man's arms. But that whole exchange and how it wasn't impossible to bring him back. It was still early enough, his attitude definitely soured the class's morale, and as characters like Horikita realize, like, they're not going to be useful. Like, can we even rely on them? If we have to rely on him, is he going to sabotage? Like, at this point, it feels like he doesn't give a shit about the class. And the way someone like Ayanokoji just let him spill his heart, and really, like, when you have a character who seemed sleep deprived, seemed on edge, was seeing right through our boy that this is who you are deep down inside. Like, you're expecting something explosive, but not to be repaired. It felt like he was too far gone. And then you just get the bombshell. The way they directed his past from, I think he said it was his middle school years. I don't know, like, just the visual flair to that, the way he explains how he pretty much turned that class into pretty much being robots programmed to follow the rules, because what he introduced was whatever you do will be given back to you. So the exact same punishment. And it's no wonder a guy like him got to that point after seeing a close friend almost die from taking his own life. When you consider the fact that a lot of shows don't go the road of actually showing why bullying can be so bad, like bystanders can have as much guilt as the ones committing it, because when you see someone in your school, I mean, been in schools where people have actually took their life, like that was a thing that I had to experience. And while I didn't know the person myself, I mean, I saw a lot of guilt of not reaching out as much or not standing up as much from people in the hallway, right? So the idea of just seeing that and then looking at Yamauchi, the dude was a douchebag and I don't feel any sympathy for him at all, but you can see why someone like him was so, this is essentially bullying. You're targeting someone, and if you don't stand up, then what happens when someone like that does take their life or attempts to, the guilt you must have. everything makes a lot more sense. I don't agree with him on his opinion of Yamauchi or anyone who considered him a friend. I think he definitely burned those bridges. But his reasons for standing up for the bullying make sense. Unfortunately, he ended up becoming a bully in the form of how he was treating people, shoving people. It wasn't as bad as it might have developed over time, but you know, it still is what it is. Which then explains the whole ruling with an iron fist approach, and just everything about that was just so well done. The biggest kicker was what Ayanokoji then said to him afterwards, which is, "You're responsible." And just the way he just is so dumbfounded, similar to myself, like, what did you just say? But it makes sense. Realistically, there was only one class who could prevent anyone from being expelled. And that was the girl who was able to do a bunch of manipulation and get help with Ayanokoji to get the points needed. It wasn't possible for anyone else to do that. And if it was, I mean, that would have been up to him to figure out. And I think because Ayanokoji didn't go that route, he didn't see it as a valuable way or realistic way anyway. But I like his logic of, if you're gonna say, and you're gonna hope that there's a way, like he did with his outburst, that everyone should be safe, then it's also up to you to accept full responsibility. No deviating blame, it's not Horikita's fault, it's your fault. And it makes a lot of sense. It's very blunt, but the way he rebuilds him and how he reminds him that he can be a valuable asset, and how if you shoulder that blame, it doesn't mean you have to just give up and die, but more so you can be a stronger version of yourself, was really good character writing. It would have been very easy for Ayanokoji to just be cold, merciless, and ruthless and tear this man down and walk away. Instead, he tore that man down to rebuild him back to potentially even a stronger version of himself, recognizing that he isn't alone and that he has those connections, like the girl you're shoving away and all these numerous classmates who have been so disappointed or fearful of how you've been acting. Those are people to rely on. This isn't a sign of weakness. The only sign of weakness was how he was acting and how just much of a dick he was being, right? And I love what they did there. Like that conversation, that revelation, the backstory explaining why he was so targeting on Yamauchi, you know, his pissed off behavior, while infuriating, I mean, there was always a reason you could see why he was acting like that. It's just, you know, he needed a reality check, which is where Ayanokoji came in. And while he doesn't, you know, apologize in the way of like, I wasn't wrong for standing up for Yamauchi, Horikita, you weren't wrong for basically targeting him either, given the situation, which was really nice development. But either way, this was a very impressive episode. I didn't think they were going to be able to top last week after how explosive it was, but you know, when you see the opening not play and the credits are immediately kicking off, you know you're in for a good time, and a good time this episode was. But let me know what you thought, because I absolutely loved this episode. Definitely one of my personal favorite episodes of Classroom of the Elite, but let me know how you're feeling down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're around here, of course, ring the bell so you get notified when I upload more. And hey, we got those full live reactions over on my Patreon if you're interested, and while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got Joseph, Blue Wizard, Emily House, Nadia Coles, Lexi18, and Annoying Waffle. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.